Welcome to Let Him Cook. Nigel, we are on the tail end of the 2024-2025 season. Iowa State lost to Ole Miss in the round of 32. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into kind of the season as a whole, what we kind of took away from the season. Obviously did not end the way any Cyclones fan wanted it to end. And then also just kind of, every group chat I'm in today, the transfer portal is wide open. Obviously, with as of now, I think 4 guys have transferred out of Iowa State: JT Rock, Caden Fish, Deshaun Jackson, Demarion Watson. I think Noyes and Drusitis. I'm not sure if he's coming back. Keyshawn's gone. Curtis is gone. I think truly right now it's Taman, Milan, Joshua, Heisey. I think that's it. Chatfield graduated.
Okay.
So, yep. Good call. Cade Kelderman. He might be on one shining moment. We're not going to talk a lot about Lipscomb, but his and one layup, I know he didn't make the free throw. I wonder if Kevin Harlan had a great call on that, by the way. That was probably the best Kevin Harlan call that Iowa State got, was his layup. So what I'm saying is the locker room does not look how it did 24 hours ago. But let's talk about the game 24 hours ago. Nigel, I was kind of thinking about this today. And I hate to even bring up his name this early in the podcast, but I was thinking about the Arizona game, the Caleb Love game. When Caleb Love made that shot to force overtime, that felt like the end of the game without it being the end of the game. I know it just forced overtime. Iowa State could still win in overtime, but for all extensive purposes, the game ended when Caleb Love hit that shot. I think when Keyshawn Gilbert was ruled out for the season, even though Iowa State still could go on this miraculous run, it kind of, at least to me, and I'm sure it was a different sentiment in the locker room, but as a fan, it felt like the wind was kind of taken out of the sails before this one even got started. I don't know. How confident were you? I know we had the podcast last week, pre-tournament, that everything is 2020 in hindsight. Did you feel like you were too confident going into this tournament after what you saw against Ole Miss? Or I guess, what were your expectations going into that game last night?
I was hoping to make it out the first weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I had seen TJ find a way to get to the Sweet 16 with less. So, excuse me. I definitely, I don't know. I came into it with a probably 50-50. This could go either way. But definitely when just the whole Keyshawn situation has been weird because it felt like, it was just because he was hurt and then he didn't travel with the team. So then people started questioning, is it more than that? And then obviously reports came out that he was, vocally frustrated. So obviously I don't know how much actual turmoil was going on in the locker room that could have affected people's play and overall just people's confidence going into a time of year where you guys need to be more connected than ever to actually make anything happen. I don't know. I didn't like if I didn't like playing Ole Miss, I didn't like the idea of potentially playing at UNC either. But I also definitely didn't like the idea of potentially having to play Michigan State next round either. Yeah. So I asked myself on my drive to work this morning, was it worth just to say we made the Sweet 16? Would it be worth probably being one of the worst teams in the Sweet 16? And the answer is probably no. Because it's you get to that big stage, and for what? So we can lose 3 out of the last 4 years again. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like we got to have perspective of this. Understand that in a year where we thought everything was rolling our way, since that Caleb Love shot, we've had some of the worst luck in the nation when it comes to just things not falling our way, people not playing up to their abilities, shots not falling, just things of that nature that weren't happening for a big chunk of the season. So it's really foreign, and I'm just kind of glad that someone kind of put us out of our misery because it just seemed like we weren't having fun anymore. And Ole Miss kind of put their foot on the gas and never let go. We kind of had to play catch up the rest of the game. We thought we were going to be able to pull off this close comeback at the end, but it just, I don't know, man. To answer your question, was I confident? Not entirely. Just because of obviously everything that's been happening since, late January, early February.
Yeah, and Ole Miss, Iowa State got out to a 15-5 lead in that one. Everything was coming in the paint early. I thought maybe they don't have an answer for us. I wasn't super confident going into this game, but early, it looked like we were going to be able to kind of have what we want in the paint, get to the rim, whether it was the big guys or guards slashing in. And then it just felt like we really started settling for outside shots. And Milan Momcilovic said it after the game. He really struggled. And what sucks about that is he really struggled against Illinois last year. And what was the last game last year? He's a freshman there. That's a tough spot to put a freshman in. Lights haven't been brighter for that guy. But you want to take your lumps there so Momcilovic can show up in games like yesterday where he's been in that situation and he has to be on. And he's getting good looks. I don't think it was a lack of Ole Miss was in our shorts and they cooked up some beautiful defensive scheme that threw us off. We just weren't in shots. And tip your hat, Malik Dia probably had the best game of his career. He was hitting shit that I've never seen that guy make. He was at Belmont last season. I saw him at the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, and he was a good player. Solid, and Ole Miss I felt like was a good fit for him, and he kind of underwhelmed this season. And then looked like an NBA player last night against Iowa State. So, at some point, Ole Miss was easily the better team. I forget how long that run they went on, a 20-2 or 22-2 run there, kind of in the middle of the first half. And then, you go into halftime. I think they were down 11 or 12. Iowa State opened the second half on a 4-0 run. Deshaun Jackson was getting to the rim, and then Ole Miss made their first 4 3-pointers. And you're like, well, this game's over. The season's over. So I think the big disappointment comes from, like you said, a little over 2 months ago, Nigel, I would have confidently told you this is the best Iowa State team in my lifetime and truly believe that. And I was there for the Hoiberg years. I was there last year when we were a 2 seed. This team felt special. It really did. I felt like this team had something that we haven't seen from Iowa State, and for it to kind of fall apart, and like you said, no fault. It's injuries. It's shots stopped going in. The swagger kind of left the building. It wasn't a lot of it was out of our control is what I'm saying. And it sucks to go down like that, where it's things that you can't control. You do all the little things. You come to practice at the right time. You put in all the work. You're in the weight room, and Taman is battered. Keyshawn gets a muscle strain. Milan's out for the middle run of your conference schedule. It sucks. It was a disappointing loss, not because of Ole Miss beating us, but because of how high this team's ceiling was in January.
Yeah. Overall, just like you said, disappointed. That's just kind of the big mantra of just obviously this season. I think, like you said, had we gone back in January and talked about how this season came to an end, I think say I was talking to January Dylan and I come back in a time machine and I tell you what's going to happen. What's your reaction to this?
I would be on
saying to me.
I can't say it in a public forum. I would say some of the nastiest things I've ever said, and then just go into shock and end up in the fetal position on the floor. This is the closest thing we've seen in my lifetime to a Final Four caliber Iowa State team. And in a great joke of irony, I would say the other one that's closest to that is when George Niang broke his foot. So I don't know if we didn't let a goat into Hilton Coliseum, if we're cursed. I don't know what. It sucks.
Well, I remember talking to you about this a few weeks ago, and the conversation kind of got railed into, we don't have enough money to consistently be good. Like even post and like pre NIL, where people, obviously the bigger programs were getting guys money under the table through cars, through other, pieces of goods. I just went back and, really looked at obviously our recent history in the good teams that we've had, the NBA talent that we've had walking through the program. And I was like, what is it? Like, because I wanted a perspective, obviously, from someone who was been through more Iowa State seasons as a fan than I was, because I truly wanted to understand. I didn't want to jump on and assume immediately that we were cursed, but it just seems like in the best years that we have, bad things happen, and I don't know what it is, man, because it just seems like in years we've been able to figure it out with not as much resource as some of our other competitors. And it just seems like in those years, that's when the basketball gods kind of spit in our face. And I feel like they took a big dookie right on our chest this year, and we just had to stand there and take it. And that's what kind of the whole last 2 months have felt, when it comes to, cheering on Iowa State basketball. I don't know, man. I want to ask you again, well, what is it? Like, because if you ask me, someone who hasn't been a fan of Iowa State their whole life, but came one, obviously to go into school there, I would assume we're cursed. Like there's some sort of bad mojo. I don't know if you've seen the movie Holes, but like Madame Zeroni, you got to take Madame Zeroni up the mountain to drink the water. Did someone not, keep their promise to Madame Zeroni? Like I don't know, man. And then like we sound crazy right now talking like this is what we've resulted to. We're trying to conspire if we've been cursed. That's just how bad things have been going. In really good years. I mean, you can rewind back to 2000 when we lost to Michigan State. That was one of the better Iowa State basketball teams, and you just run into the national champion before the national championship. So you're just going to be more a part of history as opposed to making your own history. And it's just little things like that. I don't know why we just get a bad draw. In a year or two where we were really getting a lot of respect from our peers. Like most of the season, a lot of people respected us as a program, and we're kind of chalking us in for the Final Four. We're kind of chalking us in as in the position where Houston is right now. Where, not every game is pretty, not every game is a 20-point win, but they're still finding ways to continue to survive and advance. I don't know. I just felt like that was kind of our ceiling as opposed to what is, actually going on right now. But also too, just coming to look back on also who's in the Sweet 16 right now. Ironically, it's a lot of people who paid a pretty penny for some of their basketball teams, and I don't know if that's going to be the solution going forward. Is money's going to just talk, and we're kind of going to be a victim to the system in a sense. But I find it not to be so much of a coincidence. I know we were talking off camera, but you mentioned how it seems like a fluke that a lot of these high profile teams made the Sweet 16 this year. There weren't really any Cinderellas. That was more of a fluke. Is it, or is it more just so of the state of college basketball? I don't know. I think there's a lot of questions to be asked outside of just, X's and O's, injuries on our end. Like, I think there's a bigger issue at play that I don't think necessarily as Iowa State fans, as Iowa State in general, we have much control over right now.
Aiden, can you go ahead and put the Sweet 16 up? Because I just want to, I obviously don't have the NIL bankroll for all of these 16 teams. I would have to imagine for sure 12.
If you took the checkbook of all of these guys.
Right. Like I would guess at least 12 of these schools, and maybe closer to 14, are probably paying more than State is this year.
Yeah.
Obviously you got a lot of big, not even like pure blue bloods. You do have Duke and Kentucky there. Alabama has money. BYU has money. They're about to go even deeper in the bag next year. Like a lot of these schools, Michigan's not running out of money anytime soon. Like you're just kind of at, and like, I mean, at certain point, you know, please keep donating to the We Will Collective. But we're never going to have more money than Duke. Like no matter if every farmer in Iowa gives We Will $10, Duke's going to be able to get Cooper Flag before We Will. Like you're at some extent you have a ceiling. And here I do think this year's a fluke. I think March Madness is too unpredictable to really follow any trend of any kind as a whole. Like I know the national championship, there's like these weird qualifications. If you're top 20 in Ken Palm offense, defense, the week 12 AP poll, if you're in the top 10, shit like that. I really think March Madness is too random for even NIL, even the modern landscape of college basketball to kind of constrict March Madness. Like there's nothing stopping next year from having an 8 seed, a 7 seed, a 2 seed, and a 1 seed in the Final Four. Like you truly don't know. And I think that's part of the beauty of March Madness. Now, if this happens the next 2 years where it's super chalky and it's the teams with the most money, that's when I'll talk to you and be like, hey, I think college basketball has a problem. I think this year it was just, that's the way the cards felt. I think a lot of the like sexy upset picks just kind of didn't pan out. And
it was almost like the opposite sexy picks panned out. Yeah. Like I picked VCU and UC San Diego, and then McNeese upset Clemson. And then the transport's gotten so crazy. The McNeese's damn manager is transferring to North Carolina State with Will Wade. I mean, we're in weird times. Like, and it's just odd. And I just look at Iowa State and it's just like we're kind of this middleman where like obviously we don't have the label as a mid-major. Like most mid-majors will look at us like the biggest game of their season, right? Yeah. But the reality is it's like when it comes to actual leverage in this sport now, it just feels like we don't have a lot. Like I don't even feel very confident going into the transfer portal this year because we lost a lot of our experience, camaraderie, and depth. And then on top of it, you know that it's a money game in the transfer portal. It's free agency, and there are no rules. So that's why I bring up, you know, teams who made the Sweet 16 are ironically probably making the most or paying the most money for said teams that they have right now. Because a lot of those teams are deep, and in order to afford a deep college team where people are generally okay with taking lesser roles, I just feel like those checkbooks have to be fat. Like, there's no way Mason Gillis goes from a national champion Zach Edey Purdue team where he's a role player there. If you're in Mason Gillis' shoes, you usually go to a team where you can be the guy, where you can kind of build your draft stock. For him to be just okay with, you know, moving on to another team where he can be said another, you know, 6-year role player, it just goes to show, you know, what these kids are willing to do for said money right now. So, and that's why I'm saying it puts Iowa State in a weird position where I don't know how long, if this continues, how long we can truly compete, no matter who we get in the locker room. Like it's just going to be an issue. Injuries or not, I don't know if, you know, long term, if we can uphold this, especially with the way TJ runs his program. Like he's not even going to entertain people in the transfer portal if they're not, you know, willing to not put money first, which is going to be most of the people in the transfer portal. So like Elliot Cadeau today asked for $2 million, and his agent, like I think North Carolina, the most they could do was like $700K, and they were like, take it or leave it, and he left. So it's just like you got weirdos asking for a lot of money. So it's just, I can only imagine if Elliot Cadeau's asking for $2 million, I can at least ask for $500K. Right. It's only Iowa State. Like that's how people's mentalities are going to be because they're young kids. And obviously you're going to take advantage of this wild, wild west that we, you know, NIL is right now. But I don't know. It's just, we got off track. I'm going to try to bring us back on. This loss brings up a lot of questions outside of just luck. You know, injuries, things of that nature. I start to question a lot of things and really the trajectory of not only college basketball, but Iowa State in the state of this college basketball era. I don't know what's next, to be perfectly honest with you.
I'm kind of the opposite. Like, the one thing that TJ has been phenomenal at and has an incredible track record of is like putting a dime in the transfer portal and getting $1 back. Because like Joshua Jefferson, I don't know how that guy didn't get $2 million somewhere else. Because that guy, Elliot Cadeau, I've watched him play, Nigel. That guy ain't worth $2 million.
No.
That guy,
no.
He's a fine basketball player. And that's the other thing too. I really think, I'm not an economics major. I think some of this shit will figure itself out. I think there will be enough horror stories in the portal. Not hopefully, because, some innocent 19-year-old kid is going to be the victim of this, but where, someone goes into the portal asking for $2 million, all the coaches and collectives are kind of like, hey, we don't have that. And now you kind of miss
that.
Right. True. Like there is an economy aspect to supply and demand of like, hey, there's a lot of supply and there's so many roster spots. There's a limited amount of demand. And when you have hundreds of athletes in the transfer portal, like there's plenty of supply to go around. If you can't get Elliot Cadeau, you can get some guy with a different name from North Carolina Central that might score 2 less points, but he's $1 million cheaper. So like, I think at some point, hopefully that will figure itself out. But like we have seen Iowa State, like you said, we've seen TJ take a team less talented than this year's team to a Sweet 16. And I truly think some of it is just like where the cards fall. Like it's who's playing hot. Iowa State won the Big 12 championship. And went to the Sweet 16 last year. They got rocked. That one year, Tyrese Hunter and Isaiah Brockington whooped in the Big 12 tournament. They turn around and make a Sweet 16. That team's a whole lot less talented than the last 2 years. It sucks because March Madness is kind of looked at as where the good coaches separate themselves from great coaches. But the amount of randomness that is involved in March Madness, just because of the single elimination, there's 64 teams. You are dealing with, bruised and battered bodies by this time of the year. And Lipscomb or whoever the kind of small school, this is their time to shine. Some kid goes for 30 and then your season's over. So it's a cool way to kind of level how good a team is because, this is the top, 5 basketball season as a Cyclone fan in my lifetime. Didn't end the way I wanted it to, but this team was so good. The highest ranked team in my life as an Iowa State fan, ranked second overall
in program history.
Right. So you know what I mean? I'm not too worried about where the program is because I've seen TJ do this time and time again. And I hope the transfer portal kind of figures itself out. But we have been, right there with some of the best schools on, we're not going to go after the guys Kansas or North Carolina or Kentucky are going after, Alabama. But we're going to find guys, and TJ is going to zone in on a half a dozen guys, maybe even less, and get more than 50% of them. And we've seen him do it time and time again. So if there's one thing I'm confident about, it's that we kind of replace the holes that are currently in the locker room, fill them. And I think, like you said, though, Tamin Lipsey is a perfect TJ Otzelberger guy, I think, because of his mindset. He's an ultimate competitor. He's a hell of a warrior. And I don't know if you need every guy in your lineup with the mindset of Tamin Lipsey because you would have 8 delusionally competitive individuals in your locker room. But you need more than you don't have. You half the locker room needs to have the mindset of Tamin Lipsey. We need more guys like that than we don't. So, I think the way he plays basketball, it's so mental. It's so, you have to be this tough, this long, this hard, this strong, or come March, it's going to be really hard to win games. So I think it's more so about finding the guys with the right mentality almost than the physical attributes or the monetary constraints that some of these players are putting on themselves by giving themselves a $2 million asking price.
Yeah. And I hear you there. And I don't want to make it seem like, we're never going to be good again, because that's also kind of dramatic. But I was just curious, given the current state of who's still alive and who's not. It's just a lot of it right now is just, it's a lot of people not paying a lot in their checkbooks, and that's okay. Not everyone has those resources. I get it.
But you also got schools like Kansas that lasted less 40 minutes.
They played arguably the most for what they had in their locker room. And again, there's positives and negatives to this. I get it.
North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm just saying more so of like, I don't want to look at two bad apples and still ignore what is still out here and alive. Because nonetheless, I mean, I feel like I'm curious to know how much of a Houston, how good their NIL is. They're right by. I think some oil rigs.
Yeah, Chevron.
Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler as alumni. Even Jamal Shed, who's on an NBA contract now, and I could see him having a 10-15 year career in the league. Like, it's just some people have better situations geographically, like a Houston does, than us. Right. But there's a lot of teams in there that outside of football, it makes sense why they're there. And I was just kind of, seeing if that was going to be long-term an issue for us, where no matter how good we do in the portal, no matter how many people we find that fit our identity for our program, that it still wasn't going to be enough to get over that hump. Because it seems like right now, the impossible feat for Iowa State is getting to an Elite Eight. Yeah. Like, no matter what has happened in each season, that has seemed rather impossible. Even last year, like the Illinois game felt weird, and so did this one. So it's like the first game of the tournament that feels weird. Probably not going to win that one. Yeah. It's hard to explain, but obviously, if you've been with us the last 4 to 5 years, you know exactly what I mean. But I don't know, man. It's very frustrating just to see so many times it feels like we figured it out, and I don't know if us as fans were just kind of getting ahead of ourselves before things actually happen. But I mean, can you blame us? We're a passionate bunch. Right.
And like the other thing too that I think is important is like having perspective, like. Truthfully, and I think TJ is a phenomenal coach. I think our program is in a phenomenal place. There will never be a time in my life where Iowa State is constantly in the national title conversation. Like, that's just not in the cards, probably. I think what's really important, though, is it felt like this year we had the talent, we had the pieces to go to an Elite Eight. And that is kind of the next step that you want to see this program take. And then to fall short, and not because of again, I think so much of it was just like you were playing your best basketball in the wrong time of the year. And some of that's due to health. Some of that is due to like the bodies that were thrown out there. When you're only playing 8 guys, 9 guys, they're a little fresher. The legs are jumping off the ground a little easier in January than they were last night. You're not leaving 3-pointers, 3 inches short because your knees aren't working like they were 2 months ago. So it's frustrating because this was a year where it felt like this team has that next step. They have that next level, and then you don't reach it. Like, I am not expecting us to be a perennial Final Four team, but you were ranked second in the country, and you were atop of the Big 12, which in my mind is still the second best conference in college basketball this year for the first half of the season. It was you and Houston kind of battling for that top spot. And then this happens. So definitely disappointing, but I think perspective is still important in the fact of, we're never going to be Duke and Kentucky, and we don't have to be, but we can have a year. We can have a year or a run where we are, toe-to-toe with those guys. And it's not David and Goliath, but it's not Goliath and Goliath. I mean, it is Iowa State beating a team like that would be like program defining.
Might be,
a game like that.
Might be the greatest day in history.
Right.
I'll say that openly as a Duke fan. Like that would be the greatest day in program history.
Yeah. Beating a team like that is so proven and kind of putting yourself at the table of, hey, we belong. That is just the step I want to see. And Ole Miss doesn't do that for me. Michigan State might have done that for me. But like I said, as soon as Keyshawn was ruled out for the rest of the year, it felt like we're kind of on borrowed time. Let's try to make a run. Let's play hard. But that ceiling just got so much lower. I mean, it just felt like it's going to be really hard to go deep in this tournament with the depth that was available.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's frustrating to say the least.
It is.
That's like the only word I can come up with right now. But I don't know, man. I just like, I know for the three Goliaths of college basketball, like, and I'm talking about, you know, back when people were throwing granny shots of those big leather balls into the trash hoops with the peach baskets, like the Naismith days, quite literally. I like the teams that I think are notoriously Goliaths, and really just, you know, from the time period, you know, were only really good because of segregation and JV teams, like the fact that and those schools are Kansas, Kentucky, and UNC, and then like you have teams who kind of enter later on in modern day basketball, like a UConn, like a Duke, in the blue blood conversation, even a Villanova to a certain degree. Like those teams, I don't know. I look at those teams in the blue blood group, and I'm not saying Iowa State's next goal should be to become a blue blood, but those programs all became solidified with a moment. And what is frustrating about, you know, being an Iowa State fan in general is having teams that fit the DNA of teams that set those teams on the map. So, for instance, I remember like in 1985, the Villanova team that played Patrick Ewing in the national title, like that was a Villanova team that put them on the map. And for the rest of, you know, eternity until, you know, recent years, they've always been a really competitive and respectable program to where they're, you know, competing for national championships. They're in Final Fours, they're in Elite Eights, and they're winning national championships. I don't know. I don't see why. Like, I ask myself, why can't that be us? Like, we've had a lot of teams that fit the DNA of teams of that nature, and for whatever reason, we can never figure it out. So that's the frustrating issue, is like, when is it going to be our moment? You know, is it going to be years from now? Is it going to be in a few years? I don't know. But I just feel like we've had a few opportunities in you and I's lifetime already. And we just haven't been able to get over that hump, and it's frustrating. It's 1 year. This isn't the last year of college basketball, hopefully. So we'll obviously get another swing at it. But definitely just frustrating, because I know that every team has their one shining moment. And some teams are able to have a few shining moments. It would just be nice to just have one at Iowa State. I'm not going to lie. I think our fans deserve it. I think our players deserve it. It's just a matter of, I just wish 1 year, you know, things would kind of just fall in our lap. Not fall in our lap to where like things are handed to us, but just the right opportunities at the right time.
Yeah, the stars align.
Yeah.
And this might be the Iowa State pessimism in me, Nigel, but like the tagline of our fan base, and it's in the fight song, is "Loyal Sons Forever True." And I've watched a lot of bad football. I've watched some bad basketball years, and every year, the next year, and not saying that last year was a bad basketball year, but no matter what, like, I'm going to be a diehard Iowa State fan until I have no air in my lungs. And I know that is the case for almost every Iowa State fan, but it feels like that is just kind of like in college football, they called it Clemsoning. like Clemson was always kind of right on the edge, and I know they eventually got over the hump.
That's my point. I just want us to figure it out. I want us to get a Trevor Lawrence and beat Alabama in the national championship. I know it's a lot to ask, but it happened for Clemson. I understand the analogy. Right. Yeah. So to say it's impossible is also crazy too.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, man. I just want to. I want some, man. Like I want us to feel that, because it's a great feeling. Not too many teams get it, but when I see a team like a Villanova, who's not always at the top, but there's just years where they just found themselves in the right situation. I just hope those years are all ahead of us. Like, I hope we're not just chasing forever, you know? I don't want what we're chasing to be not there. I want there to be something at the end of that tunnel, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Speaking of like kind of looking towards the future, and truly my dream job at this point in my life might be a college basketball general manager, because I love March Madness, but I've been on 24/7. They have a good like kind of transfer portal recruiting kind of, you know, I go by day. And my question is like, okay, these are the pieces we have right now, but even thinking about like what this year's team was missing. So right now you got Taman, you got Milan, you got Jefferson, you got Heisey, and you got Kelderman. I mean, you obviously got a lot. One, you just need bodies, because that's 5 dudes. So you need 8 guys. And we do have some freshmen coming in: Bateman, Mitchell, Toure, kid from Germany whose name I don't know how to pronounce yet. But I guess kind of looking from a wide lens, what do you think this Iowa State team needs this coming year? And what do you wish we would have had this year that we didn't?
Strong lower limbs.
Sure.
For one. I think that's going to be top of my list. Is how strong are your calves, kid?
Yeah.
Just overall, can't have that happen. And then I think any kid we talk to in the transfer portal, you got to ask them a qualifying question. And the qualifying question is, if you were up 3 points or 6 points, do you A, foul, or B, let the shot just go up? Those are my 2 things I'm hitting off the bat. Because I think you can test one's durability and basketball IQ in those 2 simple questions. And if they can't answer it confidently, I don't know if that's our guy. But all jokes aside, obviously we need to replace Mr. Jackson. That's a lot of size we just lost down there. Yep. And I don't know if that was necessarily like overall the missing piece that we thought it was going to be. Because there were moments at Charlotte where he looked really, really like Armando Bacot-y. Yeah. And then times here where he wasn't, the strongest. I mean, there were a lot of dud performances on his end. And then to look back overall at his season, he really only averaged around 8 points a game in 20 minutes of play. So it's not even someone you can play more than half of the game, So it's I don't know like what style of big we need. Honestly, this sounds crazy, but my more favorite type of big man that we had in modern Cyclone history, and again, I might get some flake for this. It's not Rob Jones. It's not Cam Lard. It's Michael Jacobson.
Yuck. Yeah, I hate that take.
No, I mean, again, I might get cooked for it, but I would like to find someone of that stature, essentially 6'9", 6'10", just Bill Laimbeer-ish almost, where you can kind of, like, TJ's offense is never going to be big oriented. So we don't need an Armando Bacot. We don't need a Hunter Dickinson at the 5. I think essentially you need someone who's like a bit more of a skilled Chatfield, which I think is out there. Yeah. So that's what I mean by Michael Jacobson, because I look at Michael Jacobson and Chatfield, and it just seems like it's like a diet Michael Jacobson when I'm looking at Chatfield. It's not all the calories. Yeah. So definitely would like to get a solid, almost role player, but very durable 5-man. And then obviously, I don't know how you're going to be able to replace Curtis, but you're gonna have to figure it out. Obviously, I don't know if that means more scoring responsibility on Milan, because I don't see Taman taking that full leap of being primary scorer as well.
Right.
So I don't know. It's as crazy as it sounds. It seems like you got to go find a dog in the transfer portal, which there's 500 right now. So you're off to there's a lot in the pool.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of just doing your homework. But obviously, definitely got to find someone that's going to be kind of a microwave spark plug off the bench for us. But also too, like, it just sucks that we lost a lot of our bench, because now you got to replace people who may not even play, given TJ's, his style of rotating. It's not always going to be 10 people deep. And if you're smart, I think you look at that if he's trying to recruit you as just kind of an energy guy, because I doubt he's going to just have these high school guys, just sit on the bench and not get their reps in either.
Right.
Obviously, I know remind me of our freshman coming in.
Jamarian Bateman. Bateman is one that can get like 50 in a half of basketball in high school. Xavier Mitchell has had a couple games where he scored over 60 points.
Yeah.
And then Kylian Touré is from France. He's really gone up in ratings this year. He was at prep school. And then it's like Dominikas Plitas or something is a German kid who I think he's
going to call him Dirk until we figure it out.
Yeah. Dirk's kid is he's 20 or 21, and I think he'll have 3 years of eligibility because he's obviously not an 18-year-old. So
right. No, yeah, and so I mean, really, from what you just listed off, it seems like a lot of our wing and guard play is there. Just more so for experience, it'd be nice if you could find a scoring guard in the portal to kind of give us that instant offense, and then also too, just finding a strong piece at the 5, because obviously Jefferson's still going to be a big piece for us at the 4, and then Milan looks like he's going to have to continue to play the 3, given that Jefferson isn't going anywhere. So I would love for Milan to get more in the summer, just playing more with the ball in his hand at all times, like becoming more of a playmaker. And kind of like not just a catch and shoot trailing, big man. Because let's be real, I mean, at the pro level, like, it's just not going to be him. They're gonna ask him to run the lane, and run the wing like a Peja Stojakovic. So I would love for him and a manager just have him run up and down transition threes and get really good at just pulling that thing from the Pioneer. Please and thank you, because that would save us a ton in transition, and maybe cut back on a few of those turnovers. But yeah, no, I think obviously just replacing our 5-man, getting that score that we can get potentially in the transfer portal, kind of mixed in with this core of returners / young guys. The team's probably not gonna have national champion written on their foreheads, but at this point, like, the preseason awards, they don't mean crap, because Hunter Dickinson was like an All-American coming into the season. Everyone expected Kansas to win the Natty. They couldn't even beat Arkansas. So it just, I don't want to get too ahead of myself of how we're going to be looked at on day one. It's more so how we looking after the first weekend of the tournament. So hopefully we can still make some noise next year, but it almost feels like we're almost in kind of a half rebuild, or we got our core there, but I don't know if we're going to be in full rebuild mode just yet. But still a lot of young guys coming in, so we'll see.
Yeah, it kind of feels more like going into last year is like, man, we're returning a lot. This year we're returning some key pieces. Like I mean, Lipsy, Momcilovic, and Jefferson, in terms of just kind of skill set, is more than what a lot of teams are returning. Like, I just like straight up production and what they bring to the table. Like you said, I think the 5-man, we've kind of seen TJ go two ways. We've seen him get really tall, athletic guys that can jump out of the gym, We've seen him go. This year was more kind of like size and weight and strength down low. I think my ideal 5, especially with Jefferson at the 4, you better be either a elite rebounder or an elite rim protector. And honestly, you don't need to be both. And I would love to get an elite rebounder and then bring an elite rim protector or someone with size, someone like Hassan Ward off the bench. I think that's kind of what we were missing this year. Just like a defensive-minded kind of stretch. Not even that he can stretch the floor, but that he can just switch on to multiple positions. And then, like you said, replacing Kurt and Keyshawn. Those are the guys that are asking for like $2 million right now. And it's going to be hard to find, for sure, it's going to be hard to find 2 guys like that. I hope we can find at least one that is just a certified dog. And like, we need a guy that can just, an Isaiah Brockington or Mario Shayok or there's guys out there of that nature. And another thing I was thinking about, and Tamin Lipsey is going to be a great mentor to all those freshmen, Bateman and Mitchell. But if we get a guy, like I always think about DeAndre Kane, was a senior when Monte Morris was a freshman, taking those licks in practice. I mean, like these 2 kids from Wisconsin are the best players in the state, and they've never really, they're this year's level of like Kon Knippel or Milan Momcilovic, of where they are just head and shoulders above the competition. There's something about going to a summer workout and you've got a 23-year-old grown-ass man, full sleeve tattoo, ripped as all hell, and you have to guard that guy for the next 4 hours. There is something about that I think you grow up real quick. Like it's a grown man league, and I think bringing in guys like that to really test the mentality of Bateman and Mitchell and the new guys of like, this is what we need from you in the coming years to get to this point. I think it's a good benchmark for those guys to constantly be like, all right, here's where I'm at now. I need to get to this level by the time I'm Monte Morris. I'm a senior. I'm leading this team. I think that goes so far in terms of development of having a guy just bully you for an entire summer. So I hope we get, an elite rebounder or an elite rim protector, and then a pit bull, a dog, just someone that you'd want on your side at 2 a.m. in a back alley. That's what I want out of the 2 guard. We've got the point guard, who, by the way, I like just going this year. Tamin Lipsey was coming in this year as talked about as kind of an All-American caliber player. And that guy was happy to let Keyshawn and Kurt have the shine. Like that guy is never going to be throwing himself in front of cameras or trying to get the spotlight on him. I just can't overstate how much I think Tamin Lipsey means to this program. And I think I know we won't be a national championship favorite in Vegas at the end of this offseason, but I think that guy, his senior year, he's Mr. Cyclone. Like this is his team. And I think his leadership, he might not be the leading scorer, but I think the bigger leap for him is like, this is your team. You've got the keys. You've got a Ferrari in the driveway. How far can you take it? Like, you're the driver. You're the captain. We follow you. Like, that's what I want Tamin Lipsey to be next year. We've seen point guards of college basketball past just be stud senior point guards, and I think we'll have one next year. I know we'll have one. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all doom and gloom on this podcast. We're going to be just fine. I trust this staff. I know it wasn't the result we wanted, but I don't think there's any reason to kind of look at next year as maybe we won't be a 3 seed. But I don't know. I trust this team. I really do. I think we've got wins, and depending on what we get in the portal, I'll let you know how confident I'm feeling in about 2 months. We're in a good spot. We could be in a great spot.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. Obviously, want to be as optimistic as possible with 500 kids in the portal right now. It's only in the Sweet 16, and then also, you got the remainder of the kids joining them after the the postseason's over. Because that's the thing too about the portal is that like even people who have good years this year are going to test the waters.
Yeah.
Going to try to see just to see what's out there, and then you can come to find out that turns out like a Jeremy Roach. Obviously, he was trying to see if what the waters were testing, and then Shire came back and said, "Hey, man, you're not going to be able to play the one. Like everyone on this team next year is playing the one, so you're not going to have those type of touches." So Jeremy made a business decision and took his talents to Waco. You know, there's going to be situations like that where, you know, like you said, kids being kids are going to try to take advantage of this climate and sometimes get bit in the butt. So we kind of got to trust the process. We kind of got to have to be patient. And it's easier said than done. But nonetheless, I think we're going to be okay. I pray to God that Mr. Mitchell from Oshkosh North is the second coming of Tyrese Halliburton, because that would be cool. That'd be pretty sick. I do know though that he, unlike Mr. Halliburton, who won Oshkosh North State Championship, he actually lost to Con Knippel's little brother, Kager Knippel. So
terrible names. Who's naming these kids, Nigel?
Con Knippel Senior.
Con and Kager.
Con Knippel is Con Knippel the second. His father is Con Knippel Senior. And all
K-O-N?
Yeah, K-O-N. I don't know, man. It's rough. Anyway. But yeah, no, that I hope the Wisconsin pipeline continues to serve us right, because it's yet to fail us. So hopefully we can continue us. I mean, outside of Tyrese Hunter, but it's definitely done us a blessing. So hopefully we can keep it up here and find some dimes in the portal.
Yeah, and TJ has done just an excellent job, and even like guys that, and some of it too has been his connections to UNLV and guys he was recruiting out there, but a lot of it is like kids from Missouri, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and even if they're not coming out of high school, a lot of the transfers we end up getting are from the Midwest, and they just kind of find their way back home, Nebraska. Before we get out of here, we are still, March Madness is very much alive. I got two questions for you. I want to know, out of the Sweet 16 games, and you might have kind of a conflict of interest answering this question, what's the number one Sweet 16 game you're looking forward to? And then, is your Final Four still alive? Because mine is.
Mine isn't, because I realized that my Final Four was Duke, Auburn, Florida. Well, the one I picked was St. John's. But my original pick was
hold on.
Iowa State.
Are you a bracket guy? No. You got multiple brackets?
No, I have one bracket. That's it.
Okay.
I'm explaining. I'm explaining right now. So on the podcast, I had told everyone, and again, this is probably in January, December. I had told everyone my picks for the Final Four are going to be, right now, at the time, was Auburn, Duke, Florida. And
I remember you writing Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. And then coming into the tournament, confidence was a little shot.
Sure.
So I rode who was hot at the moment and took the St. John Red Storm. And, turns out the Red Storm cleared up, and it was pretty sunny out in Razorback Nation. But that was my on paper through the actual bracket Final Four. It was Duke, Florida, Auburn, and actually no. It was actually the one I ended up choosing was pretty toxic. It was Duke, Auburn, Tennessee, and St. John's.
Gotcha.
And then so three or four of those are still alive. And honestly, I think in an alternate universe, St. John's is still dancing. I don't know if that happens too many times, but they were a scary team. So I was riding them out. I thought they were going to have enough gas in the tank to be able to take down Florida. So hopefully, but I looks like I wasn't on point with that one. But yeah, that's my Final Four. The most exciting game though this week. Frankly, you think I'm going to say Duke, Arizona, but really that's like more of an annoying game, just because like I'm tired of playing Caleb Love. Like we played him, like I'm just over it. Like,
Looked good last night, by the way. Caleb Love looked.
You look good too, Dylan, against 5-seeded Oregon. So let's just keep it. Let's keep perspective. Okay.
All right. Okay. Looked good last night.
Also, let's not forget the Stasia Kelly's current college team.
It is.
So little added motivation there.
You don't think he's got some added motivation against your Dookie Blue Devils? I mean, come on.
Oh, he will. But by his answer he gave yesterday.
Yeah. Hesitated.
He ain't got it. His heart pumps Kool-Aid. He ain't got it. He's sweet. He's sweet as hell. Anywho,
sweet.
I think the most entertaining game upcoming is going to be, and this pains me to say it. This really does.
I'm kind of looking at where are you even going with this? I'm looking at the bracket right in front of me.
I'm trying to free ball the bracket. Can you read them off to me, the matchups?
So we got Auburn, Michigan. We've got, and this is the bracket I filled out. We got Ole Miss in saving us right now. Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, I got it. Okay. I think the most entertaining overall Sweet 16 matchup is probably going to be. See, I'm drawn because I was initially going to say BYU Alabama, just because I think those teams
first one to 200.
Yeah, it's going to be straight offense. It's going to be an OG Big 12 football game, just slinging balls and saying what the hell, yeah, pause. But I also too, you can't forget about Tennessee and Kentucky because I feel that's technically a rivalry game, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
More than Duke, Arizona is looked at as the Caleb Love rematch. Also, last time we played Arizona in the Sweet 16, they won. It was Derek Williams. They beat Kyrie Irving and Nolan Smith and that crew. But yeah, I think it's probably gonna be a tie between Alabama and BYU. Even though we're a big BYU podcast. I unfortunately I probably would say that's probably going to be the most entertaining, just because Alabama has been able to play in those back and forth games all year and deliver. So I think we're probably going to see another buzzer beater coming up. Also, shout out to Maryland, first team to actually do a buzzer beater this year. I was didn't see that coming.
Well, Nigel, here's the thing: Alabama State played St. Francis in the 16-16 play-in, and that was the second best game of the opening week.
Well, okay. I don't think buzzer beater equates to best game.
That was, it was an ugly game. Those two teams sucked, but it was back and forth down the stretch the whole time. There was very few games like that the whole tournament. Even the St. John's in Arkansas was a close game, but it wasn't really, it was ugly. They shot 4 for 41 from 3. Wisconsin was just constantly trying to get out of the hole. Against BYU, there were some good games, but in terms of back and forth, there wasn't a whole lot of super entertaining. Yeah, thank God Derek Queen hit that, because if he would have missed that, I think he just simmed the tournament. Try it again next year.
If Colorado State was in this, oh my God.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. You don't want Ugly Betty showing up to the prom. That would have been a prime example of Ugly Betty showing up to the prom. That would not be okay. That in the graphic Aiden showed us today, that would be an eyesore to see all of those elite programs and then just a Ram.
Yeah.
Who invited this guy? Yeah. Oh my God. And that's why I'm not big on I'm not gonna lie, dude. I was all for upsets until I saw, and again, this is when I was interning at KCCI, so you and I watched this tournament together. But the 2023 FAU, San Diego State, Miami, and UConn Final Four, that was my final straw. That was my final straw. I was I never want to see something like that again. Also, a lot of talking heads on ESPN today talking about without Cinderellas, college, this could be terrible for the sport of college basketball. Dude, you don't like actual basketball if you can't get up and get excited about these matchups that are going to go on this week. I don't care how you feel about these teams. I don't like all these teams either. Okay. But at the end of the day, I know each and every game is going to be great. It's going to be entertaining. And the problem that people forget, because again, people have a very quick attention span with March Madness. They get all hopped up on the first day and the chaos that occurs, but then they don't realize that chaos played into a shitty national championship. Yeah. It's a trickle effect, but I don't necessarily see a bunch of flaws about a bunch of elite teams who have been talked about all year making the bigger games of the year. Like this happens every year in college football, and none of you say anything about it. You want to expand the playoff, but that's about it. You just want to add more teams. You don't have an actual problem with, Georgia being a 2 seed again. It's just because, like, I don't know, man. It's frustrating because, like, basketball gets all this flake and criticism when football has been throwing out the same product for the last, feels like 15 years, and everyone's just been A-okay with it. There's nothing to be said about it. But for whatever reason, March Madness has to be perfect to everyone's, liking ability when there's 64 teams. The likelihood of stuff going your way, you got to win 6 games in a row, single elimination, 64 teams. You have a better chance just lighting yourself on fire. Like you're probably not gonna be a champion every time you do this tournament. So it's frustrating. I think if you actually like basketball, you should appreciate a year like this, because if it is a fluke, appreciate it for what it is. It's a fluke, right? Right. I want to be able to see good basketball this weekend without anyone moaning and groaning about it. Just shut up and watch the games, please. Because I think, to answer your question, I think all these games are gonna be fun. I don't see a down one, and that's exciting. There's always a game in every past March Madness that I'm just not looking forward to watching, because it's like, what the hell is one of these teams doing here? Why is Vermont in the second round? Like, what are we doing? So why is James Madison in the Sweet 16? Like, it's little things like that I just I'm not for it. So it's like, even the I think about the 3 best Cinderella teams: VCU, Shaka Smart's VCU, Jim Laranaga's George Mason in 06, and then of most recent memory, Loyola Chicago of 2018 with Porter Moser. Like, while those teams were awesome, could you look me confidently in the face and say that's a national title team? That right there is so then why waste a tournament space? Like, I don't know, man. It's like, if you want to see an upset, and then I would hope that everyone pulls a McNeese and shows everyone real quick, yeah, it was a fluke. We're not going to try to actually ruin this damn tournament, because I think you also rob a lot of top 10 teams from playing each other for all the marbles. And teams that were expecting and trying to win. Like, you think you're just in the top 10 all year and you're not trying to win? Even us, even the season we had, we were still trying to achieve something greater, So it's definitely, it's just very frustrating how, people don't appreciate what's in front of them. It's great basketball. I'm excited, aren't you?
I do. I love these matchups. We kind of were talking about Florida, Maryland. Got a couple of reporters in the newsroom that are Florida grads. So I like, regardless if they win or lose, it's just kind of fun to have that office banter. So I am keeping on that one. And then, like you said, we're going to get 8 great games Thursday and Friday. And then the Elite 8 is basically going to be good no matter what happens.
The Elite 8 is feeding families. It doesn't matter who goes there. Right. Like, it's going to be cinema.
Yeah. So nothing to complain about. Free plug, the DPI. If you read the article word for word, you could be like, Dylan, there's some bad takes in there. And there is. But if you filled out the bracket strictly with the DPI formula, you'd have a bracket in the top 10% after the first weekend. So, bang.
I might just
numbers don't lie.
I might just do that next year.
I might start doing that, because my bracket that I filled out is bad, and the bracket that is just strictly the DPI, which team was better, top 10%.
Hold up. Since we're still here, I want to end the show on revealing our percentages of our brackets currently.
Oh, where's my phone? Oh, I got it.
So right now I'm sitting at 17.9%, which was a lot better than I was on Thursday. At like late Thursday night, I was at like 7%.
Oh no!
Which was after like the first day. Because I kid you not,
too many upsets.
I picked the opposite upsets.
Yeah.
So like the teams I thought were going to upset didn't get upset, and then the teams I thought weren't going to get upset got upset. So like I even picked Kansas. I hate Kansas.
Right.
And I don't know why I did.
Yeah, I was so mad at myself that I picked Kansas. I was like, I knew Kansas sucked. Why'd I do that?
Yeah.
But I thought Arkansas sucked too. So what are you going to do?
And that's the thing. If you're Iowa State, would you rather have the season we had at the beginning or a season where you start out 0-5? Because if this team started out 0-5 in Big 12 play,
man, it would have been dark.
People would have been jumped off the ship. All right. And you can't come back on the boat once we made the Sweet 16. Stay in the water. Stay in the water. Keep swimming. Because so it's this sport is full of pick your poison, and nothing is fair. That's what I've learned through this weekend.
Yeah, the bracket that I filled out is 37.5%. The DPI bracket is 91%.
What?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Numbers don't lie.
Guys,
hey, that work pays off.
Dylan's a robot.
I'm John Rothstein with longer hair.
Yeah, basically.
Nigel, we're hopefully going to have some transfer portal news. We're going to watch some incredible college basketball between now and then. We will have a podcast for you guys next week. We won't be able to talk about a Cyclone game, which sucks. But like I said, I think there is things to look forward to nonetheless. Nigel, is there anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah. F Dan Hurley.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, brother.
At least, hey, if we're going to lose, at least we lost to that guy.
Best coach in the sport, my ass. Have fun in Stores, Connecticut, Dan.
Have fun at therapy. How about that?
Yeah.
Because you know, right now he's in a chair with a stress ball, losing the 2 pieces of hair that he does have. Hate to be that guy. Would hate to be that guy.
Whoever Dan Hurley's therapist is, they need a raise. I don't know who.
They need a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. But yeah, that's my closing statement. UConn. When I thought I had respect for you, you lost it. Dude, did you hear what he said about the? He said, like, before the Florida game, he was essentially begging Duke fans to cheer for UConn. And then essentially, like, I don't know how this even worked because they weren't in the same region.
Right, you're not in the same bracket. You wouldn't meet until the championship. I
think his rationale was like, my brother went to Duke. The Hurley name is retired in Cameron Indoor.
Grow up.
Would it kill you? But the way he was coming off with it was like real, like, please.
Yeah.
And then as he's walking out of the tunnel, again, you play one of the top 4 teams in the country. You lose by 2. Like, it was a good game.
Yeah.
If someone's going to knock you off your pedestal, let it be that. Let it be that team. And he says something very sly to Baylor as he's walking out of the tunnel.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he was like, hope they don't F you like they F'd us. And I'm like, dude, you were an 8 seed this year. Like, this thing was over in January. And you're moaning and groaning. Like, the guy's got issues. I don't think there's going to be an off season long enough to be able to help that guy.
The only person that F'd Dan Hurley was Liam McNeely's shooting percentage. That wasn't the ref's fault. That kid sucked. And I hope, Nigel, that a Monteverde alum doesn't have the same experience this coming week. I truly do. You would hate to see it. You would absolutely hate to see Caleb Love put up 30. Cooper Flagg doesn't pull it off down the stretch. You would hate to see that. You'd absolutely hate to see it.
I just want to know, in what world is like this just Cooper Flagg? Is this just the team? Like,
he's a white guy from Duke that's really good.
So deal with it.
Yeah, but that's what it is. I know they're a really good team, but it's Cooper Flagg.
They're a wagon.
I know they are.
hopefully they continue to be a wagon and we just run over these Wildcats because they're not very good. Oh, it's like
I've got them winning. I've got them winning.
Christmas.
All right, Nigel.
I'm not gonna lie. The Florida Duke matchup is very underrated. I did pick Auburn, but I
Florida Duke would be cinema.
Great. It would be awesome. But we've been talking too long. We've been talking too long to be losers. To be on the losing end of basketball today. So it's been a ride this year. Happy to finish out the year with one more episode next week. But thank you guys for tuning in every week and listening to us just ramble because we wouldn't love to do it for any other fan base. That's for sure.
Screw Ole Miss. Go Cyclones. We'll get them next year.
Hopefully.
See ya. Yeah. Hopefully.